Hello and welcome to another episode of the Women Can Do Show. I am your host, Rochelle Sawyer Cobb. I want to first tell you all happy Wednesday, happy hump day, happy Women Can Do Wednesday. And I want to thank you all for tuning in, taking time out of your evening to tune in to another episode of the Women Can Do Show. We have our special guest, the beautiful, amazing former MMA champion, Jamie Miller. Welcome to the show, Jamie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I am excited to get into it. So, our topic for today is the best domestic violence awareness plus trauma informed approach to self defense. She has so much to share, so many gems. She's going to share her techniques and all of that. But before we get into that, Jamie, just tell us who is Jamie, where you're from, where you grew up. Just tell us, who is Jamie Miller.
Wow. I really, first of all, thank you. I really appreciate how you frame that question because sometimes, and I'm sure that you can relate to this because we're involved in so many things, right? So when people are like, who are you? What do you do? And you're like, oh God, I always freeze on that question. I really appreciate, like I said, how you frame that. So Jamie, I was born and raised in a small town in West Virginia. And I come from, hardworking family. I'm the youngest of 4 siblings and really just dedicated my life to sports. And to be honest, it was kind of an escape for me out of my home life. And then just, I was just, a simple kid from West Virginia, found sports, then found martial arts after high school. And then the rest is history.
So, how did you get into MMA fight? Like, what led to that?
So, as I said, I've, as an athlete my whole life, highly competitive gymnast for most of my childhood. And then I played sports all through junior high and high school. And then honestly, I was kind of at this not a great place in my life after high school. I didn't have much of a direction or much guidance. And my mother, when she divorced my dad, finally, after 26 years, we sort of uprooted from West Virginia and moved to South Carolina. And I was completely just, I think, culture shock, first of all, but also just, I just couldn't find my way. I was having a really hard time going from West Virginia to, very southern town, right? And just away from all of my friends and support. And so after high school, I just was still trying to find ways to stay like in shape and doing things. And so, being in the gym, and then eventually a friend of mine who was teaching a kickboxing class had, asked me, hey, do you think you can come to this class? Just, come support me. And I was just like, okay. Like, honestly, I didn't even know that I liked martial arts or anything. So I went out of moral support, and then I never stopped training after that day. I realized it was just this like untapped passion that I had, and I wanted to just take it as far as I could.
Wow. I mean, how is it like, do you have like a passion for it? Is it exciting, or is it like a lot of work? You know what I mean? Like how, like some people will, let's say, for example, I know this young lady, she's into dance. And so she's done it all through high school. And now she's like, well, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore.
Right. Yeah, no, for me, it's both. It is a lot of work. It is total dedication and commitment, and it's a life commitment if you decide to make a career out of it. And so for me, I didn't really know what that looked like when I started. I saw room to compete, but women in MMA in particular was not, I don't want to say it wasn't like, it existed, but it wasn't mainstream. Once in a while, like there was maybe one at the time, like a bigger organization that gave women a platform to fight on.
Yeah.
And so for anybody like who's been following martial arts forever, like this was like the Gina Carano days and the Misha Tate days. And those were like the women who were sort of like the pioneers of the sport. And so I knew there was room for it. I just didn't know what that looked like exactly. So I just sort of, because of just my my natural like desire to compete, I was just
Yeah.
training to improve and then to get better. And then as I continued that, it was just sort of just building on that. It's like the more I trained and competed, the more I was like, oh, I can go here with it now. And
Yeah.
and then obviously as time progressed and there was more room for women in the sport, it's like, oh well, yeah, now I can fight on TV, I can get paid, I can do all these things with it. So that's sort of how it became.
Yeah.
Girl.
And before we go on, I want to first of all share with everyone that you made the cover of Wealth Wellness magazine. You were presented with that cover. So everyone knows I posted about the Flower Her Awards in Philly this past
Yeah.
weekend. It was an amazing celebration of sisterhood. And Jamie was also one of the recipients. And they revealed the cover. She's on the cover of Wealth Wellness magazine. So congratulations on that before we go any further. Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Congratulations on your flowers.
Thank
Well
you. Thank
deserved.
you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that was an
So
incredible event.
it was amazing. It was the room, just
I-
the energy, everything was,
yeah,
yeah.
and it brought us together, so it was great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. Let's talk first of all, before we get into the approach to self-defense, share with us your story. You have a story of domestic violence,
Mhm.
and share with us how you use your story to empower others, and what like gave you the courage to even share your story
Mhm.
to empower and inspire others.
Sure. So if I could touch on my story a bit, I, was in a domestic violence relationship. I experienced many forms of abuse,
Mm,
physical, mental and emotional, psychological, financial
mhm.
abuse. And that went on for around 6.5 years before I
Yeah,
decided, like, I have to get out of this, because
yeah.
my ex's mental health was deteriorating. So at the time, when everything started to unfold and unravel, we learned later that he was undiagnosed schizophrenic. He
Oh,
also
wow.
suffered psychosis and a lot of other mental illnesses as well, on top of like,
Yeah.
drugs and other things that he was doing. So it was just a
Oh,
recipe
wow.
for disaster. And I could just
Yeah.
feel right as time was going on, like I needed to get out. And so living in Philadelphia, I don't have family here. So once I made that decision, and because we had a child together, that made relocation and like custody issues very
Mm,
difficult, where I had to stay in Philadelphia. So without having a supportive family, I didn't have anywhere to go. And so he was denying me access to our home. And
wow.
so we were homeless. And so then I started learning about resources, learning about domestic violence, services that were available to me. So I learned about Women Against Abuse,
Mhm.
who is an incredible organization. They operate the only two 24-hour emergency safe havens in the city,
Mhm.
free legal assistance and all the things. And so basically, anyway, so sorry, I get off course. We
No, go ahead.
we were homeless, then learned about Women Against Abuse, and were finally able to secure a bed at one of the safe havens. And then from there, I was able to just start rebuilding my life. And it
Yeah.
started with me. It started of like really doing the inner work, and
Yeah.
rediscovering who I needed to be, so that not only could I just sustain my life after, like once the storm blows over, like I need to make sure I'm in a good place to
Yeah.
take my life, where I wanted it to go, and to also
Right.
be a healthy parent for my daughter. And so
Yeah.
really just diving in and doing all of the self work. But through that, I realized that I wanted to start doing things to like take my power back. And that was getting back on the mats and training, because actually
Yeah.
my ex and I met each other through the martial arts community. But throughout our relationship, I very gradually started to put myself on the back burner and, not really living for myself anymore. But that was something that was always in me, and I never gave up on that dream. I knew it was just always there, but I
Yeah.
just never. Yeah. So while I was at Safe Haven, I just started training again. I didn't think anything of it. I just started showing up on, training practices. My teammates, nobody knew that I was homeless in a shelter. I didn't want
Wow.
to talk about it because it was just my battle to fight. And nor
Yeah.
did I want to fall into like this sort of like victim mode, because people feel sorry for you. And Jake, like, no, I was like, this is my thing. And showing up on the mats every day just gave me everything that I needed to
Yeah.
begin to heal and to just become this like transformed person,
Yeah.
finding my self-confidence, my team again. I was stronger. I was like, you know, it, I was like less afraid when I had to see him at court hearings and things like that. But it just really gave
Yeah.
me full accountability. It gave me structure. It gave me a schedule. It gave me something to wake up for every day. And it put
Wow.
me in a great mood. Like, who doesn't want to
Yeah.
work out and feel good? So when I entered the Safe Haven, I was like, I don't know, like 90 something pounds. And then once I started training and really taking care of myself again, it was just like full mind, body, and spirit connection there. I started, like, the life started coming back in me. I started gaining weight again, like seeing like the
Yeah.
strength in me come back. I knew there was something to that. And so actually I had a conversation with my mom while I was at the Safe Haven, where I'm like, I felt guilty sometimes because I was getting all these benefits of like having a team and a community and people supporting me and around me, even though they didn't know what I was going through. Just having
Yeah.
that camaraderie and just like that, um, being around just like, yeah, a team of people who have, a like-minded vision. We're all working towards something, higher than ourselves and working hard. And there's no judgment on the mats. Like you just show up. And so I
Yeah.
told my mom, like, I want to be able to bring something like this to the other women who are here, because they don't have that. And I knew what that was
Yeah.
doing for me, not just in my healing journey, but just like as like a whole person. I'm like, man, my mom's like, okay, listen, we gotta like, let's get you right first, and then we can think about how you want to get back
Mm.
later. I was just
Yeah.
like, that made a lot of sense to me, because I think that sometimes, and with good intentions, I think people want to help and give back, but forget that you have
Yep.
to be in a really good place. You have to be
Yep.
healed at a
Yep.
point where you can handle like giving back, because being in this space, we absorb a lot of other people's emotions, and
Yeah.
sometimes the trauma, it's triggering sometimes. So you have to be in a really good place with yourself before giving back. So it took me about 2 years before I was able to say I'm ready for this. So I
Mhm.
went back, and I'll go back. I'm sorry, a year after I transitioned from the shelter was when
Mhm.
it was my first fight back, and I won a title championship. I took a short notice fight.
Wow.
I was 1-0. Nobody knew who I was, but I knew who I was, and I was ready. I was like, I'm doing
Yeah.
this. I did the fight. This girl was like, uh, #1 in California. She was on the cusp of the UFC. I was just like a 1-0 nobody. They brought me to like feed the lion because her original opponent got injured, and
Wow.
my coach is like, "Are you sure you want to take this?" I'm like, "Absolutely." I was so, I knew, something in me was like, take it. So I took the
Yeah.
fight and flew out with my teammate to California, and I knocked her out in the fourth round. So it wasn't just like a win, like I knocked her out, and
Yeah.
that put me back on the map. So, but anyway, to go back to the following year, I went back to Women Against Abuse with this idea of bringing this like a self-defense and fitness program to the Safe Haven where my daughter and I lived, and they
Mhm.
accepted. And it was an incredible experience. I had my best friend, who's still my best friend. She was my partner in that, and her job was to keep the children occupied. So for those who were mothers, could just have that that total, self-care, the time for themselves. They can focus just on themselves, not worry about what their kids are doing. And that's something that, it was just a really powerful and something that I realized that it was needed. Whether it's, it's not just about, it helped me to realize that, self-defense, protecting yourself. Yes. Like there is some like physicality to that, right? You have to, it's important to know what to do if you're pulled into an altercation. But it's really just about, when I think about self-defense, I think about of the self and like learning to trust yourself, trusting your abilities, trusting your intuition and sort of, tapping into your strength, right? Your inner strength, like the physical strength of it all as well. And so bringing that there was sort of like the beginning. That was like, I think 9 years ago when that began.
Wow.
And then from there, Women Against Abuse sort of started asking me to join them down like in Harrisburg to do, at like these lobbying days and sharing my story with legislators and senators. And so that's sort of like where all of those relationships began to form, and me sort of seeing like, okay, wow, there's a lot of impact here, and my story really is making a difference. So that's kind of how all that began. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to commend you for having the courage to, like, you literally, people say, I want to build myself back up. You literally did that. I love the fact that you were courageous enough to take that fight. Like that had to be, when you said it, I'm like, that had to be powerful for your journey. You know what I mean? What you were coming out of, that had to be like, to me, was that like a push for you? Like, that win that you got, you know what I mean? As you're coming out of this, domestic violence situation, and then you start building yourself back up, you pick your weight back up, and you enter this fight. And like you said, it was just because the other fighter, right, couldn't, do the fight, and you're like, okay, let me do the fight, and you win. I mean, how powerful to me, like, how powerful was that for you? Just outside of the fight, just you know what I mean? Like,
no, it was just beyond liberating. It was me saying, I can do this, and I know I can do this, and then going and doing it, like seeing visualizing it, feeling it, like in my heart, like in every what's the word I'm looking for? It was just like in every fiber of my being, like I felt like, yes, I'm not that I'm just gonna I'm just taking this fight. Like, no, I'm taking this fight. I'm gonna win this fight. And and it was the most epic fashion. Absolutely. But it was an incredible moment. 100%, because it wasn't just winning a fight or, taking a belt home to my daughter, which was pretty amazing. But on the same note, it was more than that. It was just a complete validation of everything I've gone up to, gone through up to that point. And I'm like, I felt just this overwhelming sense of freedom, even though I was still dealing with a lot of stuff with my ex at that time, but just, being out of it and on the other side, and then really tapping into like my own strength and power. Like nobody else did that for me. Like that was all me. And it was just, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. As you were saying, that's all I kept thinking, like that had to be very liberating. As you were saying, I'm like, wow, like, wow.
Yeah.
So you shared how the abuse you suffered was not so, and I just want to say, so oftentimes, most people associate domestic violence with physical abuse. But verbal abuse is the most common. And so so there's verbal, there's financial, there's sexual, and you mentioned suffering from all of those forms of abuse.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important. That's why we, at least for me, why I talk about it so much, why I want to normalize the conversation, because I think people need to understand that it just isn't physical, and that, emotional and the psychological
Yep.
abuse, like, it's not okay. Sometimes people
Yeah.
are like, oh yeah, things happen, but there's a healthy way and a unhealthy way to have
Mhm.
like differences and issues in relationships. Like, sure, we have issues, but there's a very big difference between a disagreement and then, someone who's, abusing
Yeah.
somebody or using a disagreement to abuse another person. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I went through all of that. And I think, in the beginning, I noticed a lot of what I know now as red flags,
Mm.
growing up in a domestic violence environment. A
Mm.
lot of
Mhm.
what I saw from my ex was normal for me at that time. I
Mm.
mean, I'm in
Okay.
my early 20s
Okay.
anyway, so it was sort of like, but I
Yeah.
never had a healthy example of, a good thriving like marriage or family unit. It
Yeah.
was just,
Yeah.
I was in survival mode my whole life. And that's
Yeah.
why I said before, I really just threw myself into sports, and that was my escape. So, but yeah, that was sort of this seeing it my whole life, and then having other, abusive relationships prior to that, to my ex, to
Yeah.
my last one. And but yeah, so a lot of it in the beginning was, he was very controlling early on, and I looked
Mhm.
at it like, oh well, he cares, and that's kind of sweet, like he cares about me. But then, and then, he was very controlling. Like, didn't he wanted to know where I was all the time. He wanted to know
Mhm.
who I was with all the time. He controlled what I wore. And
Wow.
then, things sort of, then I became isolated. Then I became pregnant pretty early on. So
Yeah.
I just accepted this is my life.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, what kept me in it was, this cycle of abuse, right? Where there's the love bombing stage, the honeymoon phase that we all know and
Yeah.
love. And
Yeah.
um, and then they start to reveal themselves, right? The controlling, all the
Yeah.
things happen. And then, then there's for me, it was like an event, like, the physical abuse would happen. And then there would be this stage of apologizing profusely and saying all the right
Mhm.
things. It'll never happen
Mhm.
again. And then there would be a stage of like normalcy where I'm like, okay, well, maybe it was just like a hiccup, or, he's working on himself. Like, okay, we're like getting to a
Mhm.
good place now. And then you really love this person, so you're willing to put the work in. And then
Yeah.
it starts to happen again. Then they start to revert back to really who they are as this, um, the control and then the event. And like, so it's a cycle. So it's this continuous
Yeah.
cycle. And so I think that's what for me kept me there in the beginning parts for so long,
Mhm.
was to be, also I'm a very nurturing person, and I like to help people a lot, obviously, but
Mhm.
back then, I didn't do that in a healthy way. I think there's a healthy
Yeah.
way to help people, but I wanted to be a savior to everybody. I'm like, I have to save
Mm.
everybody at the detriment of my well-being,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
now I know to do that. That's in a healthy way. So, but yeah, it's sort of like where I was at, and I really had to, again, when going back to doing the work once I was out of it, that was a lot of the work was me.
Yeah.
Sure, he played a role in, like, of course, like, it was terrible, like, our situation and how it ended up, but at the same time, I honestly think it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, and what needed to happen in order for me to be the person you see today.
Yeah. Well, thank God you're on the other
Mhm.
side of it,
Yeah.
and your light is shining.
Thank
You are
you.
glowing,
Thank you.
and you're and what's most importantly is you're using your your story, your experience to serve others. You're also helping others, by not just sharing your story, but teaching all of these techniques, of self-defense
Mhm.
training. So let's get into that. So share how a trauma-informed approach to self-defense differs from a traditional method, and
Sure.
why.
Mhm.
Why it's
Okay.
important rather. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, whether I just want to start this with saying, like, whether somebody, chooses a self-defense program, I mean, it doesn't have to be trauma informed or not. I think it's important for anybody
Mhm.
to know self-defense. to know how to
Yeah.
protect themselves. But what I've learned from my own experiences and what it can do for somebody when you focus on the person as a whole and you're mindful of, I walk into my classes or events with the assumption that at least one person has experienced some form of trauma. So I try to like sort of my principles around that are really rooted in situational awareness and boundaries,
Yeah.
threat recognition, just avoidance, and tying it all together with self-care. I think it's really
Mm.
important when, again, going back to what I said before, when you focus, self-defense is of the self, and it brings you back to that intuition and trusting yourself. I think that without that confidence and trusting your abilities and trusting your intuition, that you're less likely to, first of all, take in the information and process it, let alone employ it if you're in like a real life, situation in real time where you have to think, trust your ability, like, and remember that you know what to do. You're
Yeah.
more likely to employ those techniques or get away, or just even to have that that situational awareness to
Hmm.
know, like, I feel this and I trust this feeling. So I'm going to walk
Right.
this way instead. I'm going to go the long way. Or I feel this, this person's near me in an elevator and I don't really like it. I'm going to take the next one. So
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
feel like, a lot of times if you don't trust yourself and you don't have that confidence, you're not going to process it. So I find that it's really important to focus on the whole person
Yeah.
versus just like techniques, because some
Right.
self-defense, not that it's wrong, but some classes are just focused on the
I
physicality
was
of
gonna
it,
say,
and it can be,
yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
it can be really intense, and it can also be very like, I don't know. I feel like it just sort of skips over all of these other really important components that are important to know around self-defense. Like, yeah, like I can teach you to kick and punch things, but when is a
Right.
good time to use those kicks and punches? If you can avoid something by not doing that, like that's more important for me. It's more important for me for someone to learn how to disengage and get away than to
Yeah.
be in a physical altercation with someone that's likely, 2 or 3 times larger than them. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I know that was kind of like scattered, but I like to focus on the person, being mindful of triggers, being mindful of, consent, places where we, in some instances that we practice choking, right? We practice how we get out of chokes and the
Mm.
defenses around that. So sometimes I will incorporate male co-instructors, but there's always a level of consent. They will always ask, is this okay? Are you comfortable? And then I also am very adamant about forced participation. Like none of this
Okay.
is forced, and you can still learn a lot just by watching. And then I always give people the opportunity, like when they're ready, they can jump in. I never say you have to do this, or like, no,
Good.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's, yeah, important to, yeah, just be mindful of those things, because again, there's triggers. People have gone through things, and
Yeah.
it's intimidating enough. So yeah, I just try to focus on those aspects, and it's been received well.
Yeah. I like that, and I was gonna ask you that question. What is your
Mhm.
self-defense training style? But you actually just explained
Yeah.
it. So you also this is something that I think is so interesting about your self-defense training. You work with youth in the
Mhm.
juvenile system. So
Yes.
share with us about that.
Yeah. So was, I just sort of started shifting into that work.
Mhm.
I was approached with an opportunity to work with teen girls in the juvenile justice system in this program that's tied to, I think it's some form of like drug court or something of the other. But a lot of these girls are on house arrest. Like they've gone through, they're dealing with a lot in their lives, and
Yeah.
so the programs are built to empower them, to just give them you know, a sense of like, I can be more than this,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I can learn from it. It doesn't have to define me. And so, yeah, when I was approached to work with them, I actually partnered with Women Against Abuse um,
Okay.
on that, and yeah, I did like a 4 week self defense program, and it was pretty incredible because, to be honest with you, I was scared to death. Not scared of them, but just kind of like, am I going to be able to get through to them? Like, I was just, I mean, I'm confident in my programs, but I was just like, man, like, listen, kids can be hard, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it can be really hard on you. And I was like, I really wanted it to work because I knew it could help somebody. And my goal is to always get one. My goal
Right.
is, if I
That's
can
it.
just get the one
Yep.
person,
Yep.
that's gold. So I, yeah, just went in with the intention of like, I just want to feel these girls out. I want to
Yeah.
meet them where they're at. And I don't want to come in there like overly structured and like, we're doing this. Like, I really wanted to get to know them and kind of
Mhm.
build the trust and have conversations, like real honest conversations about real life stuff that they're going through, and listening to them and asking them, like giving them the power to say like, okay, this is how it makes me feel, and I wanted to provide a space where that's okay. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be a right or wrong answer. Like, we have these honest conversations, and it really helped me to kind of build my program just based on what I was getting from them, their responses and
Mm.
videos and stuff. And so from there, I just like, in the beginning, they did not like me. And I'm like, that's okay. Listen, I'm going to keep showing up and
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. But by the
I was
end of
gonna
it,
ask, how did they receive you? I was gonna ask that.
it wasn't awesome at first. I was just like, I felt like Bozo the clown, like in the
Yeah.
beginning. Okay. But you build the trust, and you show them like their own power. Like, when you show someone like,
Exactly.
let me lead you to like your own power and remind
Mhm.
you that it's there and you have the ability, like you are your own person. Like,
Yeah.
yes, we all make mistakes, but look at me. Like, our mistakes and things we've gone through don't define us. Like, you have the
Yeah.
ability to rise
Yeah.
above it. And so that's kind of like what the energy was like. And then by the end of it, smiles, like we're laughing, we're having fun. Like, I felt like I was, uh, yeah, I had like sort of broken through, or at least cracked that, you know, those hard exteriors, and I got through, and it was great, and yeah,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. And when they're coming to me like, oh, can I want to do a little more? Like, the class is over, and they're like, I want to keep training, I want to do more. Can you just, you know, hold this for me for like one more minute? Could I? And I'm like, yeah, so like, I will stay here all day if I have
Yeah.
to. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was great. So yeah.
So you mentioned how, so you didn't like structure the class before you went in. You
Oh,
mentioned
I
how
did.
you had to kind of
I did.
go
No,
in
I did.
and you,
I had a whole program, uh,
okay, but you had
and
to restructure it.
I did, because when I
Yeah.
got there, I went off of the energy. Like I said, like, I feel like
Yep.
what made me successful in that was my approach, and like feeling the
Yeah.
energy and saying, okay,
Mhm.
like, I have to go about this a different way, and I
Yep.
have to meet them where they are. Like,
Yeah.
you can't disregard that, because then you'll never get through them. If you can't meet them where they're at and like start building from there, like, you'll never get through.
Yeah, and that's why I pointed that out, because I noticed you
Mhm,
said that, how you, like you said, yeah, you have this, your class is set up, right? You have this
mhm,
structure, but if you're going into, depending on what environment you're going into, you have to make adjustments, right?
mhm.
To meet the needs of
Absolutely.
them. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, 100%.
yeah,
Yeah, I love what you said, to meet the needs of them, because it's not about me. I
e-
mean, yes, you know,
exactly.
I'm providing, you know, something for them, but yeah, it's about them.
Yeah,
You have to make it about them.
yeah, yeah. And so what happens in the class? Is it just you do the physical self-defense? I mean, how
Mhm.
is it actually structured?
So we work up to that, and they know.
Okay.
So they get a complete overview of sort of like what I'm about, what I can offer them. But we build
Okay.
up to the physical, and that usually comes at the end of the session.
Okay.
So in the beginning, it's about just getting everybody grounded.
Mhm.
We have like open dialogue. We talk about situational awareness and maybe situations that they've been through or have
Mm.
gone through,
Right.
what the response was to that and how they could, what could have been done differently,
Okay.
before,
Okay.
um, and just kind of having, like I said, having these open and honest conversations, and then moving into the physicality part of it,
Yeah.
and then kind of getting everybody circled up. We'll do a warm up. We just kind of get the blood flowing, get moving, got the music
Yeah.
going, and it's like that part of it. I want to say it's structured, but it doesn't feel that way. It just feels like, okay, like we're having fun.
Like it just
Um,
flows. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and again, it really all depends on the group. So if I'm in a setting where I'm teaching class at a very, like at a jujitsu academy, and the kids have,
Mm.
a specific structure in which they go by, like it's a little more strict, like, okay, no talking, no, we're standing at attention, we're being respectful, all the things. And not to say that the kids in the juvenile, just like that I was working with, not that they're not respectful, it's just how we have to do things in
Yeah.
order to keep a positive flow of things going. So we have to
Right.
make it more conversational, more like, all right, we're fun, we're loose, we're doing our thing. So I open that, I welcome that. Like, let's, talk, say whatever you want. Like, as long as you're moving your body and you're stretching and you're having fun and you're learning something, I'm happy.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
how often are the classes? Like, is it a one-time thing, where they
Mhm.
have like like, let's say like a workshop, whatever, event or whatever, or are these regular classes?
So right now, so that particular was kind of just a one-off partnership, but I am
Mhm.
expanding, and I am working to do things that on a more regular basis, like integrate my program with like some of these organizations where it's, consistently,
Yeah.
these kids are working with me.
Yeah.
Um, so I actually am working toward opening my own gym, which I didn't get a chance to mention at the over the past weekend when I'm sharing my story. But I'm in the
Yeah.
process of opening a gym. So my program,
That's
Veracity Self
exciting.
Defense, will then transition to a nonprofit, and then
Yeah.
my gym will kind of be the hub for that, and it'll be
Mhm.
even more accessible. I can run more programs, and the kids will have a safe place to go, like you know
Yeah.
learn self-defense and really just transform themselves, I hope. But that's sort of like what I hope for, to see in the future. I mean, I'm doing work, I'm working, I also work with law enforcement,
Mhm.
uh, and was actually, I don't even know if I'm supposed to talk about this yet, but I'm going to talk about it. But this was actually just a conversation that happened today. So I've been working with PPD for a while, working in partnership with them on several different initiatives and community events. I also work with community relations
Mhm.
policing team, and I go with them to high schools and speak. And
Oh, good.
I was recently offered a position with the commissioner, and they're doing like this a public safety initiative here
Oh,
in Philadelphia. I
wow.
don't want to talk too much about it, but anyway, I was
Yeah,
offered
yeah.
to work with the teens in a specific part of Philadelphia,
Oh, wow. How
with my
exciting.
program. So I'm really, really excited, because then that will be an ongoing, initiative,
Yeah.
and continue the work. So I'm really, really excited about it.
Yeah, that is, first of all, it's needed. And
Yes.
I know, it has to be exciting for you to be able, like you said, to continuously do,
Hmm.
like you said, the other event, it was kind of a one-off, but to actually continuously, you know, keep this program going. That has to
Absolutely.
be exciting. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
because
I
just like
love that.
oh,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. Well, no, I was just gonna say, just like our bodies when we're, building and learning new things,
Hmm.
like our brains are also a muscle. So
Yeah,
it's really about building that muscle memory, both like mind and body. So yeah, it's definitely important and needed to train consistently.
yeah. I first of all, I love that stood out to me when I found out that you're doing the work with the youth and the
Mhm,
teens and the juvenile, the teen girls.
mhm,
That just like touched my heart, right? And so I love that you again here it I go back to the fight that you won. You took on
mhm.
that challenge. Like, you know what I mean? And it
Yeah,
when you said about you going into the juvenile system, you didn't really fear the girls, but you had this right nervousness or whatever, but you still took it on. You still took on,
mhm,
you knew it would be a challenge. Like you said, they didn't receive you in the beginning, right?
mhm.
But you still it when you were talking about that, it took me back to when you said you took that
Yeah,
fight. Like, look, I can do this.
for sure.
And here again, you took that challenge, not to get the win for yourself, but to get a win for those girls. I mean, that is
Yeah.
powerful. That is
Mhm.
powerful. Yeah, and I kudos to you for that. I love that again you're using uh your story, to serve not just women, but to serve our youth, because I do feel like our young girls are kind of being pushed to the side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not being tended to as they should. So I love that your focus is not just women, but also on those young girls, because yes, that young girl is going to grow into a woman. So why not, pour
Mhm.
into her life now and make an impact now so she can become a whole healthy woman, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important. And I know a lot of people too think, oh, we blame the parents. And I think yes, in a lot of cases, right? Like the
Mhm.
parents do fail to do their part. But I
Mhm.
always believe that as long as a child has someone that they can look up to and lean on, like a
Yeah.
teacher or a coach or,
Yep.
someone to really cover them and lead them can
Yeah.
still make
Yeah.
all the difference.
Yep.
But a lot of that too was just showing up, being
Yeah.
consistent. And
Yeah.
and it's hard work, but it's worth it. These are
It
our,
is.
our kids. These are our kids. And we
Yeah.
can't, a lot of what I've learned, especially working, kind of shifting into public safety and work, like really diving into this community work, is like you can't just complain and point a finger, or this person's bad, or this person did this. Like you have to put that to action. If you really truly feel like something is wrong, or could be better, like then
Yeah.
do something about it. Don't just
Do
complain.
something about
If
it.
you really
Yeah.
care, do something.
Yeah.
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 And that was me. That was just the work. Even in my own community, my own neighborhood, seeing,
Yeah.
things happening to women, having these, dangerous predators in our neighborhoods, and,
Yeah.
people, uh, sure, you have, like whatever, like we want this to end. So you have to be like resolution based. You have to look
Yeah. Yeah.
for the solution to the problem, and that is action. You have to take action, then you have to continuously take action. You have to follow up, and that's the work nobody wants to do. Those
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
like the people who stand in the gaps, who are constantly, and that's like the work I've been
Hello.
doing like for the last year, and it's
Mhm.
been really, really incredible. And that's actually part of one of my talks. I call it the power of one, and just me,
Mm.
one person who has done, just seeing something that was wrong and then taking action towards that, and then seeing real, like, lasting change come
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, it's been incredible. And now
Yeah.
I'm, using this talk and strategy with, when I said I was partnered with law enforcement. So I'll take you back a little bit. So back during like my more critical moments, when I actually, a year prior to escaping my relationship, I um, went to my first time calling the police, needing a safety plan that later saved my life. I ended up going back to my ex after that because I wasn't, I guess, whatever, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
But during that time, it's something I never forgot because it saved my life. And then I felt safe enough to go to them when it was time for me to, to get out.
Yeah.
And so now, because I went back and reconnected with this specific police department who was there for me during those times. And I was like, hey, I know this sounds kind of weird, but I feel like I just really want to like maybe meet with you guys and figure out who this was. A female officer who helped me at the time. She was clearly an advocate. Like, she knew what a safety plan was. She knew how to handle my situation.
Yeah.
This very dangerous, like critical moment in my life, and it saved my life. And I said, I just really want to give you guys gratitude and say thank you. And after sharing my story, well, that officer in particular has been, she's retired, and I haven't been able to reconnect with her, unfortunately. But from that conversation led to a partnership with PPD. They're like, well, okay, well, let's work together. We have to do something. Like, let's do some events. So we did a community event, public safety and empowerment event, and I had a self-defense workshop with that as well, and it was a great success. And so now I'm doing that work with PPD, but I'm also was invited to join the crisis intervention team. So I speak during the classes for new recruits and officers. And actually on Friday this week, I'll be the first person ever, like in my position, to share my story and the work I've been doing at PPD, and how now they are, how they respond differently now to domestic calls, because I'm sort of standing in that, like, I'm giving them a survivor perspective. And it's actually that original police department I partnered with, the lieutenant there, he's incredible. He's like, we changed the way we approach domestic calls now because of how we've, started working with you. And I was like, wow. So then I did I was invited to speak to, it was like a citywide leadership symposium for PPD. So I had to come from all the captains and sergeants and those in leadership, and did like a big presentation. It was incredible. So like all of, just by me sharing, by me just, like I said, standing in those gaps, and really just, sometimes I don't even know the words for it, but it's been incredible work. So, anyway, sorry. So this week, so Friday, being the first person, like, I guess who's not like an official, like, officer or whatever the case may be. I don't know the word for that, but they invited me to speak at the Fraternal Order of Police. So I'm speaking at the FOP on Friday in front of like the citywide policing community team. So yeah, I'm excited. So it's really good work. And then I don't know. I feel like like I said, standing in the gap is just, I think I'm really thriving in that for whatever reason, because it's like nobody wants to do but me. I'm like, I happen to thrive there. So it's been really rewarding.
And who else to be chosen but you, right?
Yeah.
You are really, I mean, you are doing so much. And I believe it's really making an impact. You are really making an impact on the lives of more people than you know. You know what I mean? And so for you to have those opportunities to collaborate with these other organizations, to again get out and share your story, share awareness, empower and inspire others, and then again, not just women, right? These teens, even boys, you never know. I think like you set out to your mission is to focus on this. How people say you have a target audience, but you end up reaching people outside of that. And I believe because you get these opportunities, right, to be a part of these, collaborate with these organizations, you do get to reach a broader audience, which is a beautiful thing because you get to make a bigger impact. Like you said, in your mind, your goal is to help one.
Mhm.
But we know that you are truly helping many.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think again, kudos to you. Congratulations on everything that you have done and everything that you have coming
Mm,
up. I'm excited for you. I love your courage. I love your smile. I love your
thank
confidence
you.
as you are telling your story. It is beautiful. It is amazing. And I thank you again for coming on to the Women Can Do show to share your story. I pray that someone, I not pray, I know that someone was touched by your story. And even not just touched by your story, but led to, want to do something to get out there and help someone, to get out there and
Yeah,
serve someone. So I thank
thank
you for coming on to the show. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you so much for having me. And also too, as much as it is about raising awareness, I really do want to inspire more survivors to take up space. Like there's
Yeah,
room for you
yeah,
at the table. There's
yeah,
and I'm realizing more and more organizations want that. They want
yeah,
more survivor leadership.
yeah.
I can say that because I'm there. I'm sitting at these
Mm-hmm.
tables. I was the
Yeah.
first ever former client to be appointed to the board of directors for Women Against Abuse.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
we're 50 years old next year, so
Yeah.
that was a pivotal moment because they're the organization that saved my life. And then now
Yeah.
I'm sitting on the board of
Wow.
directors, and
Wow.
that was like full circle moment for me. But yes, but
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
hey, don't think that just because you went through something or that, oh, well, this, no, it doesn't define you. It's your
That's
superpower,
right.
right? Like
That's right.
it's your superpower. Nobody can, you're an expert in your field. You don't need all the
Mm.
college education. Like you have lived
Mm.
experience, and there's no better experience than that when you want,
Yeah.
to help people and make a change.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And to our viewers, I want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Women Can Do show. If this is your first time on, be sure to click that subscribe button. I know it's right there. Just boop, click that subscribe button and subscribe to our YouTube channel because
Do it,
all of our
Cynthia. Watch you guys. Just boop.
right there. Subscribe and just be ready to tune in. We are here every Wednesday at 6:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time with a new episode with a new woman sharing her amazing story. We want to thank you again, Jamie, for tuning in. Thank you to all of our viewers. I pray that you all have a great rest of your week. And remember, as I always say, set out to finish strong Friday. Finish your week strong. All right. God bless you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.